The Discovery and Exploration team from the Galactic Council moved slowly through the empty space at the edge of charted territory. Their sleek, silver ship glided silently, its advanced sensors scanning for anything of interest. The team consisted of various alien species, all serving under the Council's scientific division. Captain Vrax were detecting something unusual ahead, said Zilnara, a blue-skinned navigator whose 6 fingers danced across holographic controls. Captain Vrax, a tall reptilian with scales that shifted colors with his mood, moved to the main viewing screen. Magnify. The screen showed a distant cluster of large objects floating in formation. As the image cleared, the bridge crew fell silent. Ships. Dozens of them. Perhaps hundreds. A fleet? Asked Vrax, his scales turning a curious orange. Appears so, responded Krell, the ship's science officer. The furry humanoid adjusted his instruments. No power signatures, no life signs. They appear completely dormant. The Council ship approached cautiously. As they drew closer, details became clearer. The mysterious fleet consisted of bulky vessels with angular designs. They lacked the smooth, organic shapes of modern Council ships. Their hulls were dark gray with faded markings and symbols no one recognized. Scan for weapons. Systems, ordered Vrax. Krell snorted, a sound of amusement from his species. If those are weapons, they're museum pieces. Look at those primitive propulsion systems, and are those physical control panels? How would anyone navigate without neural interfaces? The exploration team maneuvered around the silent giants. Each ship in the mysterious fleet seemed built for function rather than beauty. They had thick armor plating, large engine sections, and what appeared to be manually operated weapon systems. Permission to board the largest vessel, Captain? Asked Mira, the team's security chief. Her translucent skin revealed the outline of her skull as she spoke. Vrax nodded. Prepare an exploration team. Full containment protocols. 4 hours later, the team returned with their findings. The Council members gathered in the conference room as Krell displayed 3-dimensional images of the abandoned ship's interiors. Fascinating. And primitive, Krell explained. These vessels contain technology centuries behind our current standards. Physical buttons, manual override systems, and even paper documentation in some cases. Any clue who built them? Asked Vrax. None, replied Mira. But based on material degradation and cosmic radiation exposure, these ships have been here for at least 300 years. The room filled with chuckling and sounds of amusement from various species. Look at those seats, said Zilnara, pointing to images of the bridge. They're designed for bipedal species with spinal supports. How inefficient. And these weapon systems, added another officer. They use physical projectiles and chemical explosives rather than energy weapons. They'd barely dent modern shields. Captain, Vrax studied the images more carefully. What's your assessment, Krell? Why would someone abandon an entire fleet? Krell shrugged, his fur rippling. Perhaps a civilization that died out? Or they upgraded to better ships and left these relics behind? Either way, they're only valuable as historical curiosities. Contact Council headquarters, ordered Vrax. Tell them we found an abandoned fleet of historical significance. Request a salvage team to collect these artifacts for our museums. As the crew laughed at the ancient technology and made jokes about the primitive designs, no one noticed the subtle activation of dormant systems throughout the fleet. Deep within the largest ship, a small red light began blinking. Sensors, still functioning after centuries, registered the presence of the Council vessel. Encrypted data packets began transmitting to a destination far beyond the Council's known territory. The message was simple. Contact established. Observation protocols activated. The ancient fleet remained still and silent. Waiting. 6 months after the discovery of the ancient fleet, the Galactic Council Central Station buzzed with excitement. For the first time in 50 years, a new species had made contact requesting diplomatic relations. The massive space station, shaped like a gleaming silver wheel with 12 spokes representing the founding species, prepared for the arrival of the newcomers. The human vessel is approaching Docking Bay 7, announced the station's AI through hidden speakers. High Counselor Drez, a tall avian with iridescent feathers, straightened his ceremonial robes. Are we certain they pose no threat? Their ship is significantly less advanced than our patrol cruisers, replied his aide. Basic propulsion, minimal shields, and very rudimentary weapons. Our preliminary scans suggest they only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century. The human ship came into view through the massive observation windows. The vessel was bulky compared to the sleek council ships, with visible external components and what appeared to be manual maintenance hatches. Its hull bore the name Dauntless, alongside an emblem of a blue and green planet. When the airlock opened, a small delegation of humans entered the council reception chamber. Leading them was Captain Olivia Mercer, a woman with short blonde hair and determined green eyes. Beside her walked Chief Engineer Frank Miller, a broad-shouldered man with a thick beard and calloused hands. On behalf of Earth and humanity, we extend greetings to the Galactic Council, said Captain Mercer, bowing slightly. High Counselor Drez inclined his head. The Council welcomes you, though we must admit some surprise. Your species has achieved interstellar travel sooner than our projections anticipated. Captain Mercer smiled politely. Humans are often motivated to exceed expectations. The delegation moved to the diplomatic chambers where representatives from 12 species observed the newcomers with various degrees of interest and skepticism. We've reviewed your technological specifications, said Counselor Vex, a silicon-based life form whose crystalline body reflected the chamber's lights. Your propulsion systems are quaint, and you still use physical interfaces rather than neural connections? Engineer Miller nodded. We find physical controls reliable and accessible to all crew members regardless of neural compatibility. This prompted chuckles from several council members. And your defense systems? Asked another counselor. Sufficient? For our needs, Captain Mercer replied evenly. Throughout the meeting, the council representatives exchanged glances that ranged from amused to pitying. The humans remained courteous despite the thinly veiled condescension. The Council offers humanity probationary membership, Drez finally announced. This includes limited trading rights, cultural exchange programs, and access to non-sensitive technological archives. We accept with gratitude, said Captain Mercer. As the formal meeting concluded, Engineer Miller approached a display showing the Council's latest starship designs. Impressive vessels, he commented to a passing Council engineer. Indeed, our newest cruisers can travel between galaxies without refueling and contain AI systems advanced enough to operate without crews if necessary. Miller nodded appreciatively. We still prefer to keep humans in the loop. Old habits, I suppose. Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, Counselor Drez stopped Captain Mercer. Captain, has your species encountered any abandoned fleets during your explorations? Mercer's expression remained neutral. Abandoned fleets? No, Counselor. We've only recently ventured beyond our solar system. Why do you ask? Mere curiosity, Drez replied. Safe travels. As the humans departed, they didn't see Drez consulting quietly with a security officer. Monitor them closely, he instructed. They seem harmless enough, but there's something about them that feels familiar. Back aboard the Dauntless, Captain Mercer entered her private quarters and activated a secure communication channel. Earth Command, this is Mercer. First contact. Proceeded as expected. They underestimate us completely. Phase 1 complete. Council Specialist Lisa Harrington arrived on Earth 3 weeks after first contact. The slender woman with auburn hair and gray eyes had assessed 17 emerging species during her career, but something about humans intrigued her. The Council had assigned her to evaluate human technological capabilities and determine if they posed any unexpected threats. Her shuttle landed at the International Space Authority headquarters in Geneva, where a welcoming committee awaited. Leading the group was Major Sam Wilson, a broad-shouldered man with close-cropped brown hair and a perpetual serious expression. Welcome to Earth, Specialist Harrington, he said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. I'll be your liaison during your assessment. Lisa took his hand, noting the firmness of his grip. Thank you, Major. I look forward to an informative visit. Their first stop was the Propulsion Research Facility. Scientists in simple uniforms worked with equipment that seemed almost primitive compared to council standards. They still used physical testing chambers rather than quantum simulations. Their fuel efficiency was barely a third of standard council engines. "Your methods seem traditional," Lisa observed carefully. Major Wilson nodded. "We find reliability more important than theoretical efficiency. A simple engine that works consistently beats an advanced one that fails unpredictably." Throughout the day, Lisa noted similar patterns. Human technology prioritized redundancy, manual overrides, and physical interfaces. While council ships were almost entirely automated, humans kept personnel involved at every level. "Don't you trust artificial intelligence?" she asked as they toured a navigation center. "We trust tools that humans can fix," Wilson replied. "Complex isn't always better." During lunch, Lisa noticed something odd about the facility's layout. The corridors and doors followed specific proportions that seemed familiar, though she couldn't place why. The afternoon included a demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities. The weapon systems were basic energy weapons and physical projectiles, technology the Council had surpassed centuries ago. These wouldn't stand against modern Council cruisers, Lisa said, then realized how dismissive she sounded. Wilson didn't seem offended. Probably not, but they serve our current needs. That evening, Lisa reviewed her notes in her assigned quarters. Something bothered her, a pattern she couldn't quite identify. The human approach to technology seemed deliberately simplified, almost as though they were hiding something. The next morning, they visited a shipyard where a new vessel was under construction. As Lisa walked through the partially built corridors, a sudden recognition hit her. The proportions, the layout, the redundant systems, they matched the ancient fleet discovered 6 months ago. "Is something wrong?" Major Wilson asked, noticing her pause. "No," she said quickly. "Just admiring your craftsmanship." Across the city, Council Intelligence Officer Adam Clark was conducting his own investigation. The tall, dark-skinned man had been quietly analyzing human communications and historical records since arrival. Unlike Lisa's official assessment, his mission was classified. In a secure room, he examined images of the ancient fleet alongside schematics of current human vessels. The similarities were subtle but undeniable. The same design philosophy, similar proportions, comparable redundancy. "Systems. Computer. Analyze structural patterns between these two designs," he instructed. The results confirmed his suspicions. 82% probable design correlation despite centuries of supposed difference. As Adam pondered the implications, an urgent message came through his secure channel. Council border stations were reporting attacks by an aggressive species called the Novari. 3 outposts had already fallen. The message ended with a disturbing note. "The Novari fleet is using tactics that render our defensive algorithms ineffective. Council Defense Force requests immediate strategic consultation." Adam looked back at the images of the ancient fleet. A theory began forming in his mind, one that would change everything the Council thought about humans. In Geneva, Lisa's communicator chimed with priority alerts as Major Wilson received similar news on his device. Their eyes met across the room, both recognizing that everything was about to change. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council filled the great circular chamber with tension. Representatives from all 12 core species sat at their designated stations while holographic feeds showed the desperate situation unfolding at the borders. The Novari, a species previously considered a minor regional power, had suddenly launched coordinated attacks across 3 sectors. How did they penetrate our automated defense grid? Demanded Councillor Vex, his crystalline form flashing with agitation. Our system should have predicted and countered their attack patterns. Admiral Zrath, the Council's military commander, displayed tactical holograms showing the battle progression. The Novari ships are ignoring standard engagement protocols. They're using seemingly random maneuvers that confuse our prediction algorithms. Random or simply unpredictable to us? Asked High Councillor Drez. There's a difference. In the back of the chamber, Captain Olivia Mercer and Major Sam Wilson observed quietly, as the only human representatives permitted to attend. Lisa Harrington stood near them, occasionally glancing their way with growing curiosity. "Our ships have superior technology in every measurable way," continued Admiral Zrath, "yet the Novari are outmaneuvering us through what appears to be deliberately chaotic tactics." "Their ships take damage but keep fighting," added another officer. "They've disabled critical systems on 7 of our cruisers without destroying them completely." Captain Mercer stepped forward. "If I may offer a suggestion." All eyes turned to the human, some with surprise, others with disdain. "The Council welcomes input," said Drez, though his tone suggested otherwise. "The Novari appear to be using what humans once called asymmetric warfare, fighting in ways your superior forces don't expect and can't easily counter," Mercer explained. "Earth's history contains many examples of technologically inferior forces defeating superior ones through unpredictability." "And you propose?" prompted Drez. "Earth can provide tactical advisors experienced in countering such methods. We could also deploy a small defensive force to assist." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Admiral Zrath's scales darkened with skepticism. "With respect, Captain, your vessels would be destroyed within minutes of engagement. The Novari weapons would pierce your primitive shields instantly." "Perhaps," Mercer acknowledged, "but we're willing to help nonetheless." After further heated debate, the Council reached its decision. "We appreciate humanity's offer," said Drez formally, "but this is a Council matter. Your species' technological level makes meaningful assistance impossible. We will permit your observation of non-classified response planning, but direct involvement would only complicate our efforts." As the meeting adjourned, Lisa approached Major Wilson. "Your captain seemed unsurprised by the Council's response." Wilson shrugged. "Humans are used to being underestimated." Across the chamber, Adam Clark watched the human delegation with growing interest. His research into the connection between human designs and the ancient fleet had been interrupted by the crisis, but now he wondered if there might be a direct relationship to the current situation. Captain Mercer retreated to a private communication booth and activated her secure channel. The booth's privacy field hummed softly as a connection established with Earth Command. "The Council has declined our assistance as expected," she reported. "The Novari attacks match our intelligence predictions." "Exactly." The voice from Earth was calm but authoritative. "Understood, Captain. The time has come. You are authorized to initiate Protocol Lazarus." "Confirmed," Mercer replied, her expression solemn. "What about our assessment team? Specialist Harrington has been showing increased interest in our design similarities. Let her continue her investigation. It's too late to matter now." As Mercer left the booth, emergency alarms blared throughout the station. A Council officer rushed past, shouting into a communication device. "What's happening?" Mercer asked a nearby technician. "The Novari have broken through the outer defense perimeter," the technician replied, panic evident in his voice. "They'll reach core systems within days." Mercer's communicator vibrated. She checked the message from Earth Command. "Phase 2 initiated. Reserve fleet activating. Stand by." In the distance, beyond Council space where the ancient ships floated, silently, darkness began to stir with light. One by one, the massive vessels awoke from their long slumber. The emergency alarm in the Council Command Center blared for the 5th straight hour. Officers from a dozen species rushed between stations, coordinating what remained of their defensive fleet against the advancing Novari forces. "High Counselor." Drez stared at the strategic display with growing despair. 3 more outposts had fallen in the last day alone. The Novari tactics continued to baffle Council strategists, who couldn't predict where they would strike next. "Sir," called out a sensor officer, a small green-skinned being with large eyes. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from Sector 47 Alpha." Drez frowned. "That's where the ancient fleet was discovered. Could the Novari have found it?" "Negative," replied the officer. "These signatures, they're coming from the fleet itself." The main display shifted to show real-time footage from a nearby monitoring satellite. The supposedly abandoned ships were powering up one by one, their previously dark hulls now illuminated with running lights. Massive engines glowed blue as they awakened from centuries of dormancy. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Wrath. Those ships were dead. No power signatures, no life support. The sensor officer's voice trembled. "Sir, they're moving, forming a defensive line directly in the path of the Novari advance." The room fell silent as they watched the ancient vessels arrange themselves in a formation unlike any Council tactical pattern. The ships moved with surprising speed and precision for their size and apparent age. Could this be another unknown species entering the conflict? Asked Counselor Vex. Before anyone could answer, the communication officer's console lit up. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel of the unknown fleet." "On screen," ordered Drez. The main display showed the bridge of one of the ancient ships. Unlike the sleek, minimalist designs of Council vessels, this bridge had physical control panels, manual stations, and appeared almost archaic. In the command chair sat a human woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. "This is Commander Nicole Foster of the Earth Defense Force Reserve Fleet," she announced. "We are moving to intercept the Novari advance. We suggest Council forces regroup at the following coordinates." The room erupted in shocked exclamations. "Earth Defense Force?" Drez repeated incredulously. "Those are human ships?" Lisa Harrington pushed forward through the crowd, her eyes wide with realization. Major Wilson stood beside her, his previously stern expression now showing a hint of satisfaction. "Those aren't abandoned ships," Wilson said quietly to Lisa. "That's our reserve fleet." Admiral Wrath approached the humans, his scales flickering between colors of confusion and anger. "Explain this deception immediately. How could those primitive vessels suddenly activate after our scans showed no power or life support?" "Because that's exactly what they were designed to show you," Wilson replied calmly. "Humans have been exploring this region of space for much longer than we admitted during first contact. On the display, the ancient fleet, now revealed as an active human military force, engaged the first wave of Novari ships. Council officers watched in stunned silence as the supposedly primitive vessels unleashed weapon systems that had remained completely hidden from Council scans. "The hulls," whispered Lisa. "They're designed to mask energy signatures. That's why they appeared inactive." The tactical display showed something even more surprising. The human ships were winning. Despite their bulky appearance and seemingly outdated design, they moved with practiced precision, executing maneuvers that confused the Novari, just as the Novari had confused the Council. "Why maintain this deception?" demanded Drez, turning to Captain Mercer, who had just entered the command center. "Humans have learned through bitter experience to be cautious with first contact scenarios," Mercer explained. "We've been observing Council space for over a century, trying to determine if you would be allies or threats." As the ancient fleet pushed back the Novari advance, Adam Clark approached with a data tablet. "The design similarities I found weren't coincidental. The ships we're building now deliberately echo the designs of our ancient fleet because they're built by the same species." On the main screen, Commander Foster's voice came through again. "Novari first wave neutralized. Moving to secure the Kandor outpost. Request Council coordination for Phase 2 defense." Drez looked at the humans with new eyes, no longer seeing primitives but master strategists who had fooled the entire Galactic Council. The battle unfolded across the starry void like nothing the Council races had ever witnessed. The ancient, human fleet moved with surprising agility, despite their bulky appearance. The vessels broke into smaller tactical groups, each executing different maneuvers that made no sense to Council observers until their combined effect became clear. Commander Nicole Foster stood on the bridge of the flagship, resolute, her calm voice issuing orders as holographic displays showed the positions of both friendly and enemy vessels. Group 3, execute Theseus pattern. Group 5, prepare shadow protocol on my mark. Council observers had been permitted to watch from a secure section of the bridge. Among them was Admiral Wrath, whose scales had settled into a blue shade of bewilderment. "Your tactics make no sense," he muttered. "You're splitting your forces against a numerically superior enemy." The human tactical officer, Lieutenant Greg Powell, smiled slightly without taking his eyes off his station. That's precisely why it works. On the main display, the Novari ships attempted to adapt to the human approach but seemed confused by the lack of predictable patterns. When they concentrated forces against one human squadron, another would strike from an unexpected angle. Their AI targeting systems require patterns to predict movement, explained Engineer Ben Harris to the council representatives. So we deliberately avoid patterns. The largest Novari dreadnought fired its main cannon at a human cruiser. The Mai's energy beam should have sliced through the seemingly primitive armor, but instead the beam scattered and dissipated across the hull. "Impossible!" exclaimed a council scientist. "Their shields can't possibly—" "Not shields," Harris interrupted. "Diffusion plating. Looks like simple metal to your scanners, but it's actually layered with materials that redirect energy weapons." Another human vessel took a direct hit that tore open its hull. Council observers winced, expecting catastrophic decompression. Instead, internal barriers sealed automatically, and the ship continued fighting. "Compartmentalization," Harris continued. "Your vessels rely on force fields for internal protection. Ours use physical barriers that can't be disabled by electronic countermeasures." Commander Foster's voice cut through the commentary. "All groups execute Medusa Protocol." The human ship suddenly released what appeared to be small, primitive missiles. The council representatives scoffed, until the missiles passed through the Novari shields as if they weren't there. "Ballistic penetrators," explained Harris. "No energy signature for shields to detect. Old technology that still works when modern defenses expect energy weapons." The battle continued for 3 hours. Despite taking damage, the human fleet methodically dismantled the Novari attack force using tactics that seemed random, but were actually carefully choreographed to exploit weaknesses in advanced systems. When the last Novari vessel retreated, the council observation team was speechless. Admiral Zrath finally found his voice. "Your technology, it appears primitive but performs beyond its specifications. How is this possible?" Commander Foster joined them, her uniform showing signs of the battle's intensity. "What you're seeing isn't primitive technology. It's deliberately disguised advanced technology." At her gesture, Engineer Harris removed a panel from a nearby console. Inside, instead of the expected mechanical components, was an incredibly compact system of crystals and circuitry that rivaled anything the council had developed. "We build our ships to look simple externally," Foster explained. "Your scans see what we want them to see. Outdated hulls, basic propulsion, physical controls. The reality is more complex." A new voice joined the conversation as Captain Mercer entered the bridge via transmission from the council station. "For centuries, humans fought wars against other humans," Mercer explained. "We learned that appearing weak while being strong provides tactical advantages. When we reached the stars, we applied the same principle." Admiral Zrath studied the battle recordings, his tactical mind finally understanding. "Your entire first contact presentation was a deception." Foster nodded. "A necessary precaution. We've encountered hostile species before. Until we knew the Council's intentions, we presented ourselves as harmless newcomers while keeping our real capabilities hidden. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared to pursue the retreating Novari, the Council representatives exchanged glances of newfound respect and uneasiness. They had dismissed humans as primitives. Now they realized humanity had been watching, from the shadows all along, carefully assessing the galaxy with patient, calculating eyes. The Council representatives gathered in the conference room of the human flagship, Resolute. The chamber was unlike the sleek, minimalist design of Council vessels. It featured wooden panels, comfortable chairs with fabric cushions, and actual paper maps alongside holographic displays. To the Council members, it felt both archaic and oddly comforting. High Counselor Drez sat at the large round table across from Captain Olivia Mercer. The tension in the room was palpable as representatives from all 12 Council species waited for explanations. "I believe you owe us the truth, Captain," Drez began, his feathers slightly ruffled. "How long has humanity been operating in Council space undetected?" Captain Mercer nodded respectfully. 173 years, Counselor. Our First exploration vessels reached this region in 2352. Murmurs spread through the alien delegation. This timeline meant humans had been observing them for nearly 2 centuries before making official contact. We established observation outposts at the edges of Council territory, Mercer continued. We studied your species, governance, and intentions before revealing ourselves. Counselor Vex's crystalline form flashed with indignation. You spied on us. We observed, corrected Mercer. Humanity has learned caution through difficult experiences. Our first encounters with other spacefaring races weren't always peaceful. Lisa Harrington, who had been quietly analyzing everything, leaned forward. The design of your ancient fleet, it was deliberate, wasn't it? To appear less advanced than you actually are? Commander Nicole Foster nodded. Correct. Our reserve fleet was designed to remain dormant but ready. The vessels appear outdated externally but contain our most reliable technology. Council military analyst Kevin Palmer, a quiet man who had said little during previous meetings, suddenly showed understanding in his eyes. It's brilliant, he said, surprising his colleagues. A deliberate deception strategy straight from Earth's military history. Sun Tzu's art of war, appear weak when you are strong. Mercer smiled slightly. You've studied our history. Since first contact, Palmer admitted. While others dismissed your technology, I found your tactical writings fascinating. Admiral, Zrath leaned forward, still struggling with the revelation. But your current ships, the ones you showed us during diplomatic exchanges, they use the same design philosophy. Of course, replied Engineer Ben Harris. We build what works. Our technology evolved to be reliable and adaptable rather than flashy. The primitive appearance is partly functional and partly strategic. Captain Mercer activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. When humanity first ventured beyond our planet, we nearly destroyed ourselves through conflict. When we finally united and reached the stars, we promised ourselves we would proceed with caution. The display shifted to show human exploration patterns over centuries, careful, methodical, and deliberate. We observed 17 different alien civilizations before making contact with any, Mercer continued. 3 proved immediately hostile. 5 others initially seemed peaceful, but later attempted to exploit or conquer less developed species. And the Council? Asked Drez. Generally benevolent but somewhat dismissive of species you consider less advanced, Mercer replied honestly. We needed to be certain before revealing our true capabilities. Lisa Harrington shook her head with newfound respect. All those redundant systems and manual controls I questioned during my assessment, they weren't primitive at all. They were deliberately designed to function even when automated systems fail. Precisely, said Harris. When AI targeting systems can be hacked, physical targeting still works. When neural interfaces can be disrupted, physical controls remain reliable. As the meeting continued, the conversation shifted to the Novari threat. Human and Council tacticians began sharing information, with mutual respect replacing the previous condescension. The Novari adapt quickly to predictable patterns, explained Commander Foster. That's why Council defensive algorithms failed. We need to coordinate our forces using human unpredictability and Council technology. For the first time, the Council representatives looked at the humans not as primitives but as equals, perhaps even as teachers in some respects. We would be honored to learn from your tactical experience, said Admiral Zarath, his scales now a humble shade of green. Captain Mercer nodded. And we're ready to share it. The time for hiding is over. The combined fleet of human and Council vessels moved through space in formation, but not the neat, predictable patterns the Council military had always used. Instead, they followed what Commander Foster called controlled chaos, organized, enough to coordinate but unpredictable enough to confuse Novari targeting systems. 2 weeks had passed since the revelation of humanity's true capabilities. The joint force had pushed the Novari back across 3 sectors, liberating occupied outposts and securing critical supply routes. On the Council's flagship Unity, representatives from both human and alien militaries gathered around a strategic display. The atmosphere had changed dramatically from their first meetings, where once there had been dismissal and condescension. Now there was mutual respect. The Novari main fleet has retreated beyond the Cygnus boundary, reported Admiral Strath. Our latest intelligence suggests they're regrouping for another offensive, but they appear significantly weakened. Captain Mercer nodded. They expected an easy victory against predictable opponents. Instead, they found themselves fighting two very different forces simultaneously. Lisa Harrington had been officially assigned as the liaison between human and council scientific teams. She had spent days studying the primitive technology that had proven so effective. We've begun implementing hybrid defense systems on council vessels, she announced. Combining our energy shields with human diffusion plating has created protection, superior to either approach alone. Engineer Frank Miller demonstrated the modifications on a nearby console. The beauty of human engineering isn't in its complexity, but in its adaptability. We build things to last, to be repaired, and to work even when damaged. The council races had finally understood that what they had perceived as technological inferiority was actually a different philosophy altogether. Human technology prioritized reliability over apparent sophistication, redundancy over efficiency, and operator control over automation. After the strategic briefing concluded, High Counselor Drez approached Captain Mercer privately. The Council has voted unanimously to offer humanity full membership status, he said, his feathers displaying colors of respect. Your species has proven itself not just capable, but essential to galactic security. Mercer smiled. Earth accepts with gratitude. We look forward to a more open relationship moving forward. There is one condition, added Drez. We request a complete tour of your actual technological capabilities. No more secrets between allies. Later that day, a delegation of council scientists and officials boarded a human transport bound for Earth. Among them was military analyst Kevin Palmer, who had spent hours discussing human battle tactics with Major Wilson. I still can't believe the deception worked so completely, Palmer admitted as they approached Earth. Our scans should have detected your true capabilities. Wilson smiled. Human history is filled with examples of seeing what you expect to see. Your scanners found primitive materials because that's what we wanted them to find. The transport entered Earth's atmosphere, passing defense satellites that had remained undetected by Council scans. As they descended toward the North American continent, the Council delegation stared in wonder at the sprawling complex below, a facility that had remained completely hidden during Lisa's official assessment. Welcome to the actual Earth Defense Headquarters, announced Major Wilson as they landed. The facility dwarfed what the Council had previously seen. Advanced shipyards constructed vessels far more sophisticated than the simple ships humanity had revealed during first contact. Research centers tested weapon systems that rivaled or exceeded Council technology. This is merely one of 12 such facilities, explained Wilson, as they walked through vast hangars. Each continent has its own defense complex specialized for different aspects of our military capability. Engineer Harris guided them through research laboratories where scientists worked on technology the Council had never imagined. We've developed differently than the Council races. Where you pursued one path of technological evolution, we explored alternatives. As the tour concluded, High Counselor Drez gazed out at the busy shipyards with newfound humility. We laughed. At your ancient fleet, he admitted. We dismissed you as newcomers barely worthy of notice. Captain Mercer stood beside him, watching workers assemble a new vessel combining human reliability with Council aesthetics, the first truly collaborative design. Sometimes, she said quietly, the most dangerous opponent isn't the one who appears threatening, but the one you underestimate. The Council and humanity had become true allies, bound together by mutual respect forged in battle. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, the Novari retreated, having learned a painful lesson about judging appearances.